All right. Welcome to Shoot Me Straight. Dave Fields, Eddie Gallagher. Today we're here with Brad Skistimas.
You got it.
Also known as Brad from 5 Times August. Flew down here from Dallas. Well, currently you're in Waxahachie, right?
Yeah,
right
about
outside.
30 minutes south of Dallas, right?
Yeah. And give us some of your background, where you grew up.
Mm-hmm.
Just some preliminary
Yeah,
about you.
grew up in the DFW area, just suburbs around there, Louisville, Island Village, Flower Mound, and that's where my childhood was. Moved down to Austin in about 2006 with my wife before we got married. Ended up, then after that, about a year after that, we moved to Waxahachie, and that whole time I was, building a career in music, and so I started 5 Times August right after high school, about 18 years old. The name came from my birthday. I didn't want to go by Brad Skistimas because so many times people go, how do you say it? And so I was like, I got to think of a band name. And so I was like, my birthday's August 5th. Came up with 5 Times August, kind of just stuck with that. And here we are 20 years later with still using 5 Times August. But I started playing, doing what you do when you're a songwriter starting out. You play local coffee shops and book yourself gigs wherever. And then I started working in radio, which is where I met my wife. I'm at CBS Radio, and she started managing me with another guy that was working there. And when he fell away, it was just me and her, and so she sort of became the business end of things. So throughout that time, then I started getting more songs placed on different TV shows on MTV, and that sort of helped my internet presence take off. Went back in the MySpace days. I was doing really well, and
Tom.
Yep, that's right. And so then I started actually touring out more. I was kind of using the leverage that I had and the data that I had from people that were following me online to book my first big tours outside of Texas, and toured a lot of colleges for about 10 years. And throughout that time, had a bunch of song licenses and to TV shows and movies and films, and had built a career for myself doing what I love. And then became a family man, got married, started a side project in 2018 called the Juicebox Jukebox, which was family music. I was sort of kind of annoyed with what I was seeing from my own kids on YouTube, and was kind of like, God, a lot of this stuff's really obnoxious and there's no substance to it. And so I wanted to write something that was kind of cool, that parents and teachers could enjoy just as much. So I started making songs and videos for that. And then COVID comes around 2020, and I'm kind of noticing the world changing, and I'm thinking, geez, I've got to speak up. I've got to say something for my kids. I was wondering why, a lot of my own heroes in rock and roll, all these rock and roll rebels, weren't speaking up about the way the world was going. I felt like there was a lot of tyranny being taken place during COVID, and a lot of it was nonsensical. So I kind of switched gears unexpectedly and started releasing sort of protest songs. And so I went from kids' music into sort of this angry protest political singer.
Rebellion music.
And I never expected to be there. And so, it's taken me down a whole different path. And in the last 4 to 5 years have been crazy. I've traveled the world since then, and found myself on, doing a lot of rallies and protests, events, and speaking up against vaccines and a lot of the figures that were at the head of the COVID era, and it's been a wild ride, to say the least. That's as truncated of the last 25 years as I could give you. But
hey, what's up, guys? If you've been following me for a while, I'm a huge fan and supporter of Firecracker Farm. Alex, the owner, is not only an incredible human being, but he makes an incredible product, and that is why we could not be happier that they are sponsoring the Shoot Me Straight podcast. Each guest, when they come in, will get a sample of Firecracker Farm so they can take it back and enjoy, and I can tell you, to each person that we've given it to, they have not been disappointed. You can put these, put this salt on your favorite food. favorite beverage. I've even seen people put it in their coffee. They love it. There's an assortment of heat, so if you don't like it too hot, they definitely have that taken care of with some mild flavors. And then it goes all the way to extreme heat if you like to sweat. So if you guys are interested in purchasing some, go to firecracker.farm. All right, thank you for listening, and God bless.
That's been the journey so far.
When it hit 2020-ish, what was that like when you first heard, okay, there's this virus, COVID? Do you remember first hearing about it and researching it and then looking at?
Yeah, so my oldest son was injured by his early childhood shots, and so he's 13 now. So my wife went down the vaccine medical freedom rabbit hole.
They know which shots.
Yeah, it was like his 6 month shots. They couldn't tell you when because they give you so many.
Yeah.
But or which ones they were, but it was those shots. And so, so my wife had gone down that rabbit hole. And we've been on the outset, sort of looking in of the medical freedom movement, and then COVID. Once COVID rolled around, I was kind of like looking at it with a suspicious eye. And once the masks rolled around, and then everybody sort of went along with 2 weeks to slow the spread, and then 2 weeks became a month, and 2 months, and 6 months, and that whole year I was kind of just going like, what's happening right now? This is, a lot of it didn't make sense, and I knew that at some point the vaccine conversation was going to be coming in. So anyway, I started sort of, I released a song called God Help Us All, which is really, I shut off throughout 2020 creatively. I was like, I don't know what to say right now. Like, the kids' music thing didn't really feel appropriate. The world was kind of becoming dark in my own sort of perspective, and I kind of prayed on it and put out this song called God Help Us All. And it's kind of a long song. It's like a 5-minute song that was kind of just me venting about the state of the world at the time. And I was saying things I had never said as a songwriter before, because a lot of my music before was, love songs, pop rock music, pretty middle of the road, safe music.
Yeah,
you could
not
call it
controversial.
Not controversial. I had, a good amount of fans that had been following me for a couple decades that were, across the board, left, right, center, it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I'm saying these things that, were perceived to be, of one side of the aisle. And so I'm starting to lose a lot of my fans after this first song comes out. And I'm getting all kinds of messages I never expected, from fans that are like, I can't believe you would, sing about things at such a dangerous time. You're spreading dangerous misinformation. Mm-hmm. And a lot of doors were being closed on me, from, 2 decades in the industry. So producer friends, music friends, any opportunity I might have had was being,
shut. Yeah, shut. Doors were being shut.
Doors were being shut, and I was losing fans. But while that was happening, I started getting new messages in as well, that from new people that were discovering my songs, and they were saying, thank you so much for saying what you're saying. And a few months after that, I put out another song, which was sort of like an addendum in a way of the first song, and it was called Jesus, What Happened to Us, and it's sort of just a more observation on what was happening. And more of those messages started coming in. So I was almost like rebooting my music career from scratch in a way, because I told my wife for months, I was like, I'm either burning down everything I've ever worked for over the last 20 years, or I'm building something new. And all of a sudden, this sort of new group of followers that were very like-minded and let me know I wasn't alone in how I felt were sending me messages of support, and it made me go, oh, I need to kind of enlist my music for this time and use my platform to speak up, to let others know that they're not alone. Yeah. So it was a reciprocal relationship, whereas, prior to that, you release a love song and people tell you, like, oh, thanks, I used it in my wedding. And that means a lot too. But this was something different. This was such a weird time, and a lot was
super polarizing.
Super polarizing. Yeah. People were, families were getting broken up and friendships were falling apart over a lot of the propaganda that was coming into place, and a lot of people felt like they they were alone. And I certainly felt alone, you know, early on when I started releasing those songs. And so over the course of between early 2021 and the end of 2022, I had released an album's worth of sort of protest music, and I put them all into one album called Silent War, and released that. And you know, this was all word of mouth. This was people getting behind my music and supporting it. When that album came out, it actually charted really well on Amazon and was charting up there with Taylor Swift and Bruce Springsteen in the top 10. And I'm like, geez, you know, that really showed the power of, you know, what we can do if we vote with our dollars and our values and our morals. And, you know, a lot of incredible things were happening during that time, but it definitely wasn't easy. You know, you start that journey and taking a step forward and speaking up for what you believe in, and you're not sure if it's going to, you know, pay off or whatever. But I felt like I had to do that, you know, not just for me, but for my kids. And you know, I didn't want 10 years to go down, you know, to be 10 years down the road and my kids to be like, that was crazy. What did you do during that time? You know, I couldn't let my story be like, well, I complied and sat and said nothing, you know. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's been the last 5 years or so.
Did you lose a lot of really close friends?
Oh, yeah. It's crazy because you spend, you know, a good chunk of time, you know, in this era of entertainment, the mystique of an artist is not there anymore because of social media. So you connect with people as an artist and your fans that listen. Like back when we were growing up, you'd see somebody, you know, who is on the stage only through the movie or on concerts or in magazines, but all of a sudden now we have social media and people are connected to you. And you know, that's been my, you know, the arc of my career has been utilizing social media, letting people know who I am and connecting with them, and letting people know where my heart is. So, you know, meeting fans after the show and all these other things. So to get to 2020 and to start speaking up and saying what I believe in, and to have people that should really know who you are, not even have the conversation, but just slam the door shut and say, I'm not listening to your stuff anymore, or I'm deleting you from my from my spot. It's just it's pretty much just a farewell.
Good riddance.
Yeah. And so that was kind of hard to deal with, and you're like, oh crap. But, you know, I wouldn't have had it any other way, you know.
And like you said, like once you did start speaking out and making those songs, you got a whole new fan base as well. And that's what I've noticed, like with the whole cancel culture thing, as long as it's been going on, you know, as soon as someone speaks out and like the corporate whatever wants to cancel you, there's going to be another group that's like, nope, we agree with you. And most of the time that people get canceled, like if you even look at the big names, like Tucker Carlson or any of those individuals where they got fired off of Fox, and now he has more of an impact on his own, and he has way more of a fan base. I mean, and that's, I imagine the same thing with you, where it's like I now have way more impact than I did before, making these, you know, whatever love songs that are, you know, for everybody, and it's fine. But now it's like I'm speaking to a base that they want to hear what I have to say.
Right.
And I think that's the beauty of it as well, right? It's people look at cancel culture like this bad thing, and it sucks. If when you're going through it and you're getting canceled, or like, you know, people are speaking things about you that aren't true about your character. But at the end of the day, just like you did, if you could stand up to it and just be like, no, that's not who I am. You make yourself undeniable. It's like, nope, this is what I stand for, and I'm going to keep marching forward. And you will gain such a following from that, because half this people in this country want to see that. They want to see someone stand up. They want to see authenticity, transparency, and not hide of like, this is what I really believe. And there's people that want to follow that. People are looking for people to follow too, that have a backbone.
Yeah, that's what I felt was missing from that time. I mean, every song that I released, starting from that first song, was me leaning into it more and more and more. And the more I leaned into it, the more I felt attacked, and the more I felt a need to respond. And so every song was like, you know, calling their bluff or whatever. And you know, by the time I released this song called Sad Little Man, I was calling out Fauci, and nobody was calling out Fauci at that time. He was put up on this scientific pedestal. And
Dr. Evil.
And what happened was Glenn Beck shared that video on his show, and it skyrocketed what I was doing at that moment. And all of a sudden, this suppression and cancellation that I had kind of heard about and was kind of dealing with a little bit here and there on Facebook. You know, Facebook would delete a post here and there or whatever, or suspend me or whatever. That came swinging in right after that, because all of a sudden I had a major voice sharing my work, and I was getting messages from people saying, hey, I heard you on Glenn Beck's show, and I tried to find your video on YouTube, but I couldn't find it. And so they were suppressing the search of that video. Yeah. And I'm like, no way. And so I'm on, YouTube searching for my own work, and I can't find it. And so that put me in that whole other tier of cancellation and suppression. But the fact that people couldn't find it only made them search for it even more. And so that's what cancel culture does every single time, is it works the opposite way. It only builds the...
And yet they still pull that same tactic to this day, and not realizing, like, dude, once you cancel somebody or make it, we're not going to let your music be heard anywhere, it makes people want to find it more. Like, take, for example, I actually just heard today, Kanye West, right? He just put out a new song, and I guess the song's crazy, right? It's Heil Hitler. And whatever. It's like, it's Kanye's a genius, but he's also obviously out of his mind at times. And but they canceled it right off the bat. They're like, you can't find it on any platform. But guess what I did when I heard? I went and I was like trying to search it so I could hear it, like, because somebody was talking about it. I was like, oh, I want to hear this, and I guarantee you, I'm one of millions that probably did the same thing. It's like they should have just let it play out. Not saying it's right or but either way, let it run its course. But by you canceling it, you're making it that much bigger now. Yeah, it's people are going to play it nonstop.
Yeah, that's something that I think that the conservative art and entertainment side of things doesn't fully grasp yet, that I've noticed, is like the left has this megaphone. So when they do something and we all turn our heads and look at it, we give it more attention. And so if we can do that more on that sort of, on the other side of things, in my brain right now, it's sort of like there's the woke left and then there's everybody else. But
yes, and you are right. And then there's also the extreme right as well.
Yeah,
right?
there is very much so.
Kooks on both sides.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so I feel like there's this, I guess we could put it in this middle ground where, if we want to recenter our focus, you have to start creating that kind of art to, maybe not so much as Kanye West over there. I mean, make him look up Heil Hitler or anything, but to create some. That's kind of what was happening with my music at that time. Is I was creating stuff that made people go, wait, what is this? And then you end up looking for it, and that kind of snowball effect happens where it builds more and more and more attention. And I think that's how you can impact culture is creating that kind of art. But, not doing it so much to where I feel like the woke left has like this, extreme version of just fluff, and it's all easy tactics of just extreme, like who was the guy that did a music video? He's giving a lap dance to the devil, and Lil Nas. And that makes you go, oh, what? He was giving a lap dance to the devil, and everybody looks over there.
Yeah.
And it's like, how far can you take that before we're like, all right, we've seen everything that there is. And then, maybe I don't know what the far right is doing as far as entertainment. I don't know if Kanye West is considered far right or what I think
Kanye's in his own category.
I don't know where he's at on the spectrum right now.
I think at this point, everyone's like, he doesn't belong to us. Yeah. He's on his own.
I'm not touching that. But, I think that, there's an opportunity in the art and entertainment space to create very real messages that actually mean something to get people to think again, because for a long time we've been inundated with just fluff that, is whether it's Cardi B's WAP or what I just mentioned. It's all just kind of shock value entertainment.
It's garbage.
Yeah, it's
I
garbage.
mean, let's call it. It's the music that is put out now, especially by the woke left, is complete and utter trash.
Right.
They're like what Little Nas, and then what's her name with WAP and all
Cardi
that,
B,
and
sure.
and those are being played on TV. I mean, I think she was part of Kamala Harris's campaign. Got up there and she, and I'm like, so this is the woke left's people that they want you to look.
This is the role model, right, for young women, right? Yeah.
Which is they ride on that, and what they think is they're going to capture the young vote, right? Because people that are young are like, oh yeah, it's rebellious and everything like that. But at the end of the day, it goes against all of our values, right? And you have the freedom of speech, and go ahead and make those songs, but that's not something that we should be standing on, being like, oh no, this is what a role model is, and let's get them out there in front of children singing, wet ass pussy, which is what WAP stands for. It's like, there it is. So that's what we want our kids listening to, or performing at the Super Bowl, or any of those things. It's and it's utter trash at the end of the day.
Do you feel like since 2020 to now 2025, like it has pushed you to be more conservative than you were?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Texas. I've always had conservative values, but I was never political about it. I was kind of like live and let live. And I think that what happened throughout 2020 was a lot of people that had that mindset felt very pushed to forward, out of their comfort zone to say, to stand up for what they believe in. And so, for sure, definitely made me sort of, I don't know how you would describe it, coming out of the closet as a conservative or whatever.
Correct.
When I was kind of, every time I received pushback, I just kept leaning into it. And even before I was releasing the songs, I was starting to get a little more vocal on social media about what was happening in the world. And so I was already being shoved in that direction. And I remember even just I had posted a Bible verse on my social media, and I had never really even shared a Bible verse on social media before. And I immediately got this pushback from people that, Bible thumper, whatever it was. And I was like, you can't even, that was jarring to me. Like, you can't even share a Bible verse without getting pushback from people that supposedly, that, like I said earlier, know where your heart is, know where, what is wrong with what I'm even saying anyway. And so that stuff just kept inching me more and more forward. And maybe, you could call it conservative, but, I don't even know what that means.
I don't think anybody does
anymore, at this point. The label idea to me is kind of washed itself away over the last couple of years. I think, 2020 to 2022, I would say, I was totally conservative,
moderate,
artist.
Right?
Sure.
Yeah. And I think that's where most people stood, is because I grew up, my parents were moderate Democrats, right? But nothing was ever said growing up. They didn't talk politics in front of us, but the values they had as moderate Democrats, I still stand behind. I'm like, you should, work hard for your money, but then also help other people with the money that you make that need to be lifted up, right? That's how we should be doing it. And that was a democratic view. But now, like you said, you said it perfectly. You were pushed into this, I guess I'm a conservative full on now, because we got broken up into two teams. Yeah. And they pretty much, if you even, like you said, posting a Bible verse, it's like, oh, that's a right wing thing to do. So of course the whole other side's going to attack you. Yeah. For not because of the Bible verse, it's just because they see it as you posting for the other team. Right. Yeah. And that's all it comes down to. It's like we've lost the ability to use our brains to actually critically think and be like, okay, what's this guy trying to say? It's automatic. Nope, that's a right wing thing. You're on that side, and then they try and demonize you. It's the same principle as these articles that come out in newspapers, or nobody wants to read the article itself. All they look at, headline, yep, I just made my mind up. That's it. And I think that's been the unfortunate thing that's happened to our country over the past I would say 8 years, slowly, is people have gotten lazy, and people want to blame it on the media, like they're the ones doing this. At the end of the day, it's your own fault. Like you can't. That's like blaming this whole people are overweight because of the food that's served to us in this country. Yes, is our food unhealthy? But at the end of the day, you're the one shoveling it in your mouth. No one's forcing you to do that. And it's the same premise where they're driven to either the right or left. You're the one that's not taking the time to actually look into it and critically think and find out what's really going on here. You just want to be told what to think so you can sit back in your comfortable spot and be like, see, I'm on my team. And,
Yeah, that's what I'm noticing right now is, we just spent 5 years pretty much, observing the government, calling them out. Not the thing with the media. I mean, over the last decade has been welling up of just complete distrust in the media. And I feel like since this new administration has taken a lot of people have let their guard down, and they're kind of just happy that they want to feel like winners and they want to hear what they want to hear. But they, now that their guys in, it's like, okay, we won. And a lot of people are sitting back now.
They should be paying attention.
I'm saying now's the time to be the most critical. You just went through all of the training, so to speak. If you were going through that era of time, going like, oh, we need to question that or whatever, and fighting all these different, categories that are influencing us, whether it's government or media, don't let your guard down now. Now let's raise our expectations and let's all unite and make sure that we realign and refocus. And I find myself in a lot more conversations like that now.
Same. Yeah, I think, and I'm of the same boat. Like, I'm glad I voted for Trump. I'm glad he's in office. It was definitely like the day that you woke up and found out he won, it was like a relief. You're like, because I think we were heading into a bad direction if Kamala had won. I think that would have been the end of a lot of things as we know it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, okay, we're back in. Who are we holding account? Like, we need to hold people accountable for what happened, because looking back on, just hearing you talk about COVID and all that stuff, I'm like, dude, that was the biggest sham ever pulled on the American people. And thousands of people lost their jobs, lost their livelihoods because of it. And then you had people that were successful that also lost their jobs and livelihood because they were canceled for speaking out. And I'm like, somebody, they promised accountability for a lot of things during this race. And I get that, we're still sort of brand new in there, but at the same time, I'm like, you made those promises.
Right.
One being what I think I'm pretty frustrated about is the whole Epstein thing. Right? That was one of the promises that was made. We're going to release the files. And then what do? They send out these conservative influencer dorks, which they are. They're dorks. And they're holding these binders, which are empty. But they're like, here it is. And then nothing.
Then nothing.
It's like this, it's like, dude, don't treat us like the left.
Right.
Like, we're smarter than that. We're critical thinkers. We know when we're being scammed.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing to us right now with this whole Epstein thing. And if you're going to play that game, then what else are you going to hide back from us? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they ran on transparency, they ran on trust, then prove it to us.
Yeah.
I don't care. There's probably people on that Epstein list that were going to be like, holy shit. And this is why they're not releasing it. But who cares at this point? It's like, release it all, burn it all to the ground.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's how I felt moving into the administration. Like, my vote went towards Trump. I said, but my vote was based on what you said. First of all, we were heading in a really bad direction, but also we're going to see really fast if this is going to be different. And same frustrations as you with Epstein, with COVID accountability. There's very little has even been said about what they're going to do about COVID. Or if anything, Fauci. Everybody's waiting on Fauci, and I'm like, as much as I would like to see him go to jail, he's also like 84 years old. So by the time his court date rolls around, what's he going to be, 90? And then he won't even last a year in jail anyway. So, the that's where, you know, my frustration comes in. Is this is promised to be the most transparent administration in history, and they are doing some good things are happening. Not denying it, but it will be defined on who goes to jail and how quickly they go to jail.
Yeah.
You know, I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, midterms people will start going to jail." I'm like, why wait? Get on it. Show us that they're serious about it. I get things have to come together, but I'm also like, let's get on it. Let's hear it. You know, if they're going to say, "What did you do last week?" I want to know what they did last week. You know, if they're going to send an email out to the government employees and say, "Hey, you know, let us know what you did last week," I want to hear that as well from everybody in the higher levels. What have you done to move forward the Epstein case beyond the binders? Because that was a huge insult to the American people. Yeah. You know, I mean, and people still, you know, they want to feel like winners. So they're going to say, you know, well, we just got to take time. These things take time to come together. They got to get, you know, airtight cases, and everybody's making excuses for, you know, this lack of transparency. Like, no, she said they were on her desk.
Yes.
Like, do you not remember that?
And I get the fact that it takes time to make airtight cases, right? I've dealt in the legal realm, and I know that how that whole thing works, and it does take forever. But nothing is stopping you from just publishing all the names. Like, here's all the names we're working on, you know, making these cases. Right. But at least we can then, okay, all these people were on this list, you know, and that I think that would give the Americans some, like, okay, a sigh, like, now we know who was there, and now we know who they're going after.
Right. Yeah. There's just nothing that's letting us know, you know, there's not enough that's at the forefront to say, hey, we're working on it. You know, we want you to know this is what we're doing. But yeah, releasing those names would go a long way, because that's all the American people are asking for. You know, they're just like, who was there? Who was involved? We'll make up our mind. We'll find out. We'll let the truth take its course. We have a system in place that, you know, will serve justice to those who need, you know, justice to be done on them. But, you know, yeah, that's time will tell. We're all at the mercy of this sort of sit and wait situation. I'm like, I don't know, guys. You know, let's get a move on.
Do you think it is the most transparent that any administration ever has been, though?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I guess
it's hard. It's hard to rate that, because you didn't have, you know, Twitter 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Previous to that, you know, you didn't have a lot of the tech that you have now.
I would think
it seems very transparent.
Yes, I think it is the most transparent an administration has been yet, because this administration uses all the social network platforms.
Yeah, that's true.
They are pumping stuff out there. I mean, and then you have them all going, they're all going on podcasts. So you can listen to anybody from that administration on a long format. They're not scared to do it. You know, while the other side, if it's not scripted, then they're like, I'm not doing it, right? Because they know they really have no real plan. It's just, they just want to manipulate. That's it. So on that, you know, I do think it has been transparent the whole time. You hate to see that they are being this transparent, but at the same time, on the important matters, it's like, we're not gonna put that out yet.
The lack of prosecutions is I've hear that a lot. Or
and I
see
get
that
there's
a lot.
probably people that are gonna get fried on the right?
Yes.
But it's like, then fuck them. Like,
that's the tough situation that we're in right now.
Well, there's people on the right that they've pushed out with the Doge stuff, right? That they've been, how much money they've been getting, NGO stuff. They've been, in a lot of ways. I think it's really cool that Trump. You mentioned podcasts, that Trump went on Joe Rogan, right?
Well, I honestly think that's, people can deny it or not, I think that was a huge factor in him winning.
Yeah.
Just his, you know, willingness to go on Rogan's podcast and sit there and talk with him. But I also think if Kamala had done it, then it probably would have been more of a fight of who was going to win. But the fact that Trump went on and then she denied it, I think that made up a lot of people's minds. Like, all right, now I see. You know what I mean?
I don't know how well she would have done. Well, remember they were saying, oh, it's only going to be 30 minutes, and Joe posted all that stuff.
Stipulations for her appearance. Yeah,
they're trying to dictate how the interview is going to go.
They said it has to be somewhere else and all this stuff, and Joe's like, no.
Yeah, Yeah, I think that the underlying frustration is the buildup towards January 20, because we went through 5 years of COVID, which didn't just affect the United States. That was a worldwide situation, and so it's not even that nobody in America has been held accountable. Nobody worldwide has been held accountable for all the different governments, all the different pockets. If you were watching what was happening in other countries versus the United States during COVID, we were pretty.
Oh, we had it good.
We had it good. And I was trying to, relate that message through my social media platforms to anybody who was, sort of pushing back against my own message, because I'm like, look at what is happening. People are getting arrested, maced in the face, beaten down. Children are being removed from their parents. Terrible situations. And so to me, the COVID situation is much broader than even just what happened in America. But to be building towards, okay, we've got to win this election, because then we have a chance at accountability and justice for what we all just went through. And it wasn't just COVID. It was, you got the J6 situation.
The Afghan withdrawal.
Yeah, it's almost like COVID looks like simpler times almost when you pile everything else that has happened since then. So to get to January 20 and he's sworn in, now here we are, and now it's already, mid-May. And so, and there hasn't really been that much on all these key figures. There's been arrests of illegals and this and that, and that's great. That's, to me, it's kind of like that's given, right? It's kind of a given, don't you think? Like you get the people that broke the law, but the higher ups, unless something that is coming, which we were all told, there's a plan in place and we have everything, and all these one-liners that everybody was thriving on, building up towards, we just got to get in. It's all kind of dissipated. And so, and especially the COVID conversation is kind of washed away amidst all these other stories. Yeah. And so when our daily media and our news is feeding us something new to worry about every single day, since January 20, now we're inundated with what's happening now. And so everything else.
Well, the media, drives on fear. It's like, keep fear in the populace, keep them distracted, which is, going back to when you were talking about when you started speaking out or writing songs, and you're like, I had friends like, how could you? You're harming other people. That is all fear-based information that was their, intaking from the media and then just regurgitating it towards you. Like that, again, they're not thinking critically. They're just being like, I was told this was a deadly virus, therefore you speaking out against it, you're putting people in harm's way. And that's what the media runs off of constantly. So they manipulate this country into not actually paying attention to the important things of what we want to see, like the accountability, because we're all on this ADD, oh, okay, that something crazy pops today. Yeah. Within 48 hours, it's gone. Yeah. And no one's thinking about it anymore.
Right.
And they know that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I still to this day keep talking about COVID. If you follow me on X, every day I post some sort of receipt from back then. I'll be like, never forget. And it'll be a screenshot of how terrible things were. Yeah. And, that's just my effort to say, hey, stay focused. There's still situations. To me, the opportunity with COVID is, it's not that long ago, and if we as a country, we the people, can stand up and say we need answers for this, we need accountability, we need the whole story and everything that happened, that would be unprecedented. And when you look at all the other historical moments that have happened that have been lost to time, even 9/11, which wasn't really that long ago, but how much conspiracy and all these stories and unanswered questions are built around 9/11 or the JFK assassination.
They just released those files, and it's confirmed. Right, the CIA was involved in killing our president, which is what everybody already thought.
Right.
But it was like we couldn't, prove it.
Yeah.
But look how long that took to come out.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling like that's what they're trying to do with COVID is like
right.
40 years from now, like, oh, all right, here we go. It's, all's forgiven.
Right. Yeah. And that, to me, that's the opportunity is like, what if we actually did it this time? What if we stayed focused and didn't let them distract us and we could actually hold the people accountable, get the full story. And then, future generations don't have to look back and go, oh, yeah, that was crazy that they, wore all those dumb masks. But I guess that was just the way things were, have the story laid out in full. It would be incredible and a huge service to future generations because, we're still debating what happened with the Titanic, 100 years later. And so all these historical moments just get washed away. And the JFK files was interesting too because 62 years people waited for those files to come out. And what they got was 80,000 poorly Xeroxed pages that confirmed what we already knew, like you said. But not the thing that was, and they put it out there and were like, you guys go through it. I was kind of like, at least give us a consensus of what you say is in here.
At least highlight so I can go through the important parts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like if this is the transparent administration, say this is what we've found. You can corroborate that with what's in here, and here's everything. Although I did find it interesting, there wasn't one picture or video or audio recording. That also had to be within file classification, right? So I don't know. That was my thought.
I liked that they put it all out. It's like, here's 88 pages. Because one,
more than 88,000.
88,000, yeah. 88,000 pages. Because, I just use AI with it and just, scan it through and stuff. I like somewhat that they did that because they're, in a sense, it was, here, you make your own, now, whether you're going to go through 80, there's some people that will. You go, okay, I trust this guy. And here you could read a couple summaries and kind of put stuff. Or you go through AI, say, hey, tell me, top 50 pages to read or 100 pages to read in this.
Yeah.
But what I do think, 100% is you hardly see anything with COVID now. Like you're seeing ICE and you're seeing all sorts of other stuff. Well, we haven't even talked about the immigration bill. But what's wild is, you see such an agenda of importing all these illegal immigrants. And then what's wild to me is when you see, hey, every president, even Democratic presidents in the past 20 years, deported millions. And then everyone's on this board that says, oh my gosh, how could you deport, illegal criminals even? And coming up and supporting that. It's just not, it's not a real
Again, it
critical
comes down to
thinking.
what team you're on, right? These people that are out there being outspoken about how, you're deporting these, and they'll say it like illegal aliens and these criminals, they don't give a shit about those people. What they care about is I'm just speaking out against the other side. That's it. Even if what I'm saying is so nonsensical, I'm going to do it regardless because I'm speaking for my team.
Right.
And that's, we are literally living in idiocracy. It's, you ever see that movie? A documentary pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's where we're at. I think as a society, we have become so unintelligent. I think we're going backwards a lot of the times because people are just getting lazy and they're just like, well, whatever my team says, then I'm going along with, even if it's nonsensical. And that's on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing. I think, if you need a prime example of how backwards we've gone, we've been debating what a man and a woman is over the last, 5 years. So, yeah, it's nuts. And, I think a lot of people are, there's been sort of an awakening a little bit. And I think a lot of people feel like a lot is moving too fast. I have noticed that in conversations a lot with friends, there's this need to regain control over our lives. I think a lot of it has to do with, our devices and that dumbing us down because we get the instant gratification without the research and the patience to actually do our due diligence and looking at what we're absorbing. And but there is this need of, homeschooling our kids is coming back, is on the rise, wanting to own farmland and grow our own food again is coming back around. And there's this, I feel humanity is kind of pulling back a little bit with the flow of this technological and media current and news that's pushing us forward, but it's kind of starting to pull back collectively. So, because I think there's an innate sense of freedom and control that we need in our life, and too much of it is getting out of control now. So
yeah, it's what our country's founded on, and that's, I think, why it's starting to come back around. Because that is what we founded the United States of America on, is the freedom that you have to live here and to live your own life and not have the government interfere with your life. That is how we started, and we've completely got to a point where the government wants control of everything that we do, and they want to dictate what we do. They want to dictate what we think, and I think it's got to a point. I mean, COVID was, I think, the tipping point. People are like, I've had enough. I mean, I remember here, and it wasn't even that bad here, but even like the little things of going to Publix and seeing the arrows where you have to walk down the aisle this way. It's like, dude, what? Like, how did this happen? You know what I mean? And
this area is probably one of the best in the country.
Yeah. And the sad part is to see the individuals following those rules, and you're like, dude, it made me feel like I was back in the military again, because that's right. I laughed about it when, the pandemic happened and they, put us on lockdown, the 2 weeks to, flatten the curve. But then as that kept progressing, and, people were bitching and like, what the heck? But then at the same time, there was other people, like you said, like they were falling in line, and they were reporting people, oh, this person's not wearing a mask, and it was a bunch of Karens out there. But that is what it's like being in the military, because you get these stupid rules put on you in the military that don't make any sense. And for critical thinkers in the military, we're just like, I was like, dude, I'm not following that. I'm not wearing that. But then you have the other half of the military, which they're given that little bit of authority. It's like, oh, if you see someone like, take for example in the military, they these yellow PT, like when you work out, they were like, you have to have this yellow reflective belt on at all times. Doesn't matter if it's during the day or at night. And it's stupid. It's like, dude, I'm going to work out. I'm not wearing a stupid reflective belt. Like, it's daytime. But you would have other people, hey, where's your belt? And because they've been given the authority to tell on people, like, if you see someone not doing it, report it. Yeah. And that's where, I mean, as a society, what I saw was like, dude, this is not good, man. Like, we're creating little Gestapos,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Doing the government's work for them.
You give people just an ounce of power, and they run with it. I remember I wore a mask one time on the airplane, ironically, to a rally to protest wearing a mask, but going through the airport, how do you
have to do it.
Yeah. So, but to my own credit, I wore it as little as possible. So I held it in my hand going through security until I got to where they, you walk through, and then they said, you got to put it on. Wore it going through, took it off on the other side of security, walked all the way to the gate. And then as they start letting us board, they say, like, sir, you're going to have to put your mask on. I was like, yeah, I'll put it on now. It's fine. So I walked down the little, the little tunnel to the airplane, and I heard them walkie-talk down to the airplane like, we've got, a troublemaker.
We've got a non-compliant.
And so I get to the airplane, and then I've got my guitar with me and stuff, and the guy's like, sir, you're going to have to put your mask on. And I put my guitar up. I'm like, yeah, I'll put it on. I put my guitar up, and I turn around, and he's right here in my face, and he's like, are we going to have a problem? And I was like, who are you, person? Like, you've been given this ounce of authority.
Oh, and by the way,
you're now in my face. Like, in my face. I just gave you COVID. Yeah, and it's stuff like that. But the thing with masks is I can't, like, you talk about how militaristic it is. Like, people went their whole lives, and then one day the government said, here, you have to put this on. And they never went back after that. No question asked. Like, when I was at the airport today and people are still wearing them.
Oh, yeah.
And, now it's funny, it's ironic because they say, well, it's a personal choice. And I'm like, oh, now, of course, it's a personal choice. It wasn't back then when they were kicking babies off for not wearing them. But I
kind of like that they're wearing them still.
I know.
Now it's like, okay, you're an idiot.
Yeah, I know everything there is to know about.
Thank you for identifying yourself. I know not to talk to you. Great. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know everything there is to know about you, for sure.
I think one of the biggest problems with it though was the push. Like, do you have friends that are fairly liberal that you can have conversations with politically?
Yeah, I mean, they won't talk to me now, but
But you would be fine talking to
sure,
them.
Yeah, of course.
Like if someone said, "Hey, I voted for Harris," but we can have a conversation. I don't have any of those friends anymore. I mean, you just cannot. In fact, if I do, then I'm not gonna be your friend.
Yeah.
I think if things we disagree on some things probably, but okay,
I don't
doesn't
care.
mean
And that's the thing.
You don't
I
have to
care who
agree.
you vote for.
Right.
Like, vote for Kamala. Like, it doesn't bother me.
Yes.
And I don't have any hatred towards you for doing it. Do I agree with it? No. But it's like,
But you don't have to.
I don't have to
still
agree
be
with you
friends.
on every other thing, and I can still like you as a human being. The problem is people turn who they voted for as their whole identity, and they no longer are like themselves. Or, okay, yeah, you voted for Trump, right? Or you voted for Kamala. But what else do you like to do?
Right.
And they're like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
And all they want to do is talk about, their policies or this is why. And then what I found is, mostly people, because I have family members too that are super liberal. And I've tried to have conversations, and you can sit there and not say a word and just like, okay, speak your mind, and they don't point out facts. It's just a constant insult fest on Trump or any of Trump's supporters. And I'm like, do you see why, like, there can't be a dialogue here? Like, we don't start off by like, yeah, you morons voting for Kamala. It's like, okay, yeah, you voted for Kamala. What policies do you agree with that she's presenting? And there's no conversation to be had then anymore because half of them don't even know the policies. They just know they hate Trump. Hey, what's up, guys? So when I'm not doing the podcast, I'm doing a lot of traveling. I put on training all over the country for LE and civilians. I also travel a lot for my nonprofit, the Pipe Hitter Foundation. And as you guys know, travel, going back and forth, can wear you down. But this past year, I have found the antidote. So let me put you on to Aquavita, Destin's premier IV therapy and oxygen bar. This place is owned and operated by a board-certified ER physician with over 23 years of experience, so you know your health is in good hands. Every IV drip is mixed to Board of Pharmacy standards and backed by CDC-level infection control. Whether you're dealing with a fatigue, a hangover, jet lag, stress, immunity issues, or even PMS, they've got custom vitamin drips and boosters tailored just for that. When you go inside, the place is pretty awesome. It puts you at ease right when you go in there. They have comfy lounge chairs, which are perfect for singles or couples, full group sessions. And you can even book the whole space for bachelor or bachelorette parties, race day recovery, or wellness events. While you're in there, they go the extra mile too. They'll give you blankets, sleep masks, earplugs, aromatherapy oxygen, all complimentary. And the best part, every visit includes direct care from the physician and experienced RNs, all focused on fast, safe, and affordable wellness. So if you're in the Destin area, hit up Aquavita. Your body will definitely thank you.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah, well, they're how many years invested into that hatred now, so there's no going back.
No.
I think what you're describing is the pre-Trump world, when you could be friends with whoever, our differences didn't matter. It was what brought us together that mattered. And that's the world that I grew up in. That's the world that I miss was, being from the music industry. Like, I had friends across the board. It wasn't based on our politics. It was based on, our love of music, and that's what brought us together. And you could hang out and not have to, wonder if they'd turn you in because you had 10 people over at your house or whatever, But, yeah, I think that era revealed a lot about, that's what makes the conversation so hard, is that era brought out a certain ugliness in people that considered you a murderer, people that your friends, close family, and that's why the conversation is so hard now, because, it does go back to pre-Trump, or just, I think, when Trump announced his presidency, I think a massive agenda came in. We all saw it every day in, day out. Hate this man. This is your one figure to hate. Mm-hmm. And no matter what he does, you cannot like him. And so we're 8 years into that, 9 years now. If you've spent the better part of a decade hating this guy, there's no way you're going to turn around and go, maybe I got it wrong. There's people that go, yeah, I used to really hate Trump. I used to be a never Trumper, and I realized, those people are there, Brad, but there's some people that are really deep into it. And when you cake in other layers of idiocracy and time-wasting emotional manipulation, like what happened throughout COVID, that's another layer that somebody would have to reflect on about themselves. Oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't have called, my brother a murderer
or a Nazi.
Yeah. And so there's layers and layers of self-reflection that you don't want to do that if
they're going to have to let their ego down to be able to do that.
Right.
And they won't.
That's a good word. I mean, it's like pot committed. They're so committed into the, and also a lot is committed into, hey, I've always watched CNN since I was, a kid, or my family, and that's, they wouldn't lie to me, or they would that's where I get the real information from, or they've been so invested. Mm-hmm. It's this level of investment.
Right. Why would they lie to me? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that I've seen, a good handful of friends, that started that at least pre-COVID, why would they lie about this?
Yeah.
Well, here's several reasons why they would lie, but
they don't want to, they do not want to think that the government could do that to them, because they have such a belief and trust in the government that they're like, there's no way they would harm us or do anything to inflict harm on us. And we went through the same thing when we were going through our stuff.
Yeah.
When the government targeted us, it's like we were trying to explain it to people, like, dude, they're literally making stuff up. And people are like, no, they wouldn't do that. You did something. You did something. They wouldn't do that to you.
Right.
And you're like, buddy, yeah, they would. And that was us drinking through a fire hose, because I was probably under the same belief beforehand. Yeah. Like, no, dude, they wouldn't just target somebody.
Well,
and now it's
you've given your life to the military,
Well, so yeah, and it's, but they will. Like, if once they choose you, the government choose, like, yep, hang this one out to dry, target him, and it doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. It's like, we've made our decision, and then the more that they push to target you, and then you sit there and call them out, or prove hey, dude, what you're doing is wrong, they'll just double down.
Right.
Because the government will never admit that they're wrong.
Right.
Because if they do admit they're wrong, then that is going to send a message to everybody that's already brainwashed into believing everything that they do. Then maybe they'll start questioning them now. Like, oh, so you were wrong. So they'll never do that.
Yeah.
They'd rather just prey on the belief
right.
of the American populace that they have.
Yeah, that's the number one rule of the playbook, I think, is never admit you're wrong. And so
make counter accusations.
That's why we're at where we're at right now, is it's one lie after another, that has never been, there's never been an admission of, I shouldn't have done that, or, oh, we were wrong on that. And at some point, it's all got to fall over and topple, because I compare it to, you ever watch the show, this is kind of random, but you ever watch Saved by the Bell when we were kids?
Zach Morris.
Yeah.
So Zach Morris, he would create a lie, right? And he would build on that lie throughout the episode. And at the end of the episode, he gets found out because the lie became too big, and, he's been revealed. And that, I feel like, is what the situation that we're in with our government is. They can't keep masking all these lies over and over again. At some point, the string on the sweater is going to be pulled, and it's just going to start unraveling the whole thing. And that, again, circling back to COVID once again, that era, I feel like, would reveal so much about how the entire system is run. And if we can stay focused on that, you'll see that sweater start to be pulled, and everything else will follow suit from behind there. So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, because I obviously listen to multiple podcasts, and it seems like the same conversation is being had, right? Like the same one that we're having right now. Everyone's like, dude, the government, the media has lost trust in people, or the people have lost trust in them. But there are still the individuals that believe, right? And then people are like, well, what is the end state going to be? And, what can people do to find out the truth? And, what platform can you go to? And, I get all these different conservative platforms and liberal platforms now that are, separated from the traditional media, which I think is a good thing. But at the same time, it's on you as the individual to determine what you are going to let up here and what you are going to believe. I think now with all this technology coming out, especially with AI, it's people are like, oh, it's great, it makes things easier, but I also think it's a very dangerous thing, and you have to be more vigilant now more than ever with what information is being told to you, because half of it is half truths or just straight lies, and they are doing everything to manipulate you in the way you think. It's the same premise on social media. I was talking to a couple the other day, and they were like, oh, we post these things, and then the comments are like all this negative stuff, or like we go and look at the comments to see what kind of reaction. And I told him, I was like, you do realize like half those comments are bots. I'm like, there's these bot farms they're bought out by corporations, by the government, that they're there to manipulate the way you think too. So like, I think what happens is people see an article or see a post, right, and they're like, oh, I'm not sure how to think about this. Let me go to the comments to see what the reaction is. Well, half those comments aren't people. They're bots manipulating the way that you are going to think. Because if you see 100 comments like agreeing with maybe what you might think, like, okay, I was right, but those could be bots. You know what I mean? So you have to be very vigilant nowadays. And I think you have to be schooled up on just how things work, because if you're not, then you are going to be manipulated very easily.
Yeah, I think there's a certain naiveness on how manufactured our day-to-day is that people just don't understand. It was like me, for example, me not being signed to a major label. To most people that would think that well, he's not good enough. The good ones are on the major label, the big famous people that are out there, and they don't understand how manufactured that is and what kind of machine is running that whole agenda. And so there's, it's the same thing with, like you're saying, on social media. People sort of need to start thinking about that and being vigilant, like you're saying, but questioning that. I think especially in the day of AI generated everything, visuals and audio. I've got an app on my phone that can replicate my voice and read me books in my own voice. If I've got an app on my phone that can do that, what does the government have? What do all these big tech companies have? What can you buy as a lobbyist to help smear and manipulate the public into your agenda? What kind of tools are out there? And people are very naive about how that all comes together, what they see. That's been my big lesson, I think, over the last decade, is waking up little by little to questioning what it is that you're seeing. Like when you see war footage now, of what's happening
in Ukraine.
There's very graphic visuals that are being passed around. And number one, I have to ask myself, I just have to, is what I'm seeing real? Number two, why do I get to see it? Why am I allowed to see this? We just went through a period where the wrong word can get you censored for a month. So why am I now allowed to see, a baby's head blown off or whatever it may be? That's very, troubling stuff to see. It's all allowed. We know what we see. We're allowed to see, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and that's all to push an agenda, right? That's like, we want people to be for the war in Ukraine, right? So we are going to allow these,
algorithms,
grisly images shown of, kids being slaughtered or whatever. And you are correct. Some of those are AI generated. They're not real. But then some are. But the simple fact that, it's like they allow that to be on the feed. But then if I post a picture with me shooting a gun at the range,
right,
boom, you're done.
Yeah.
Like, you can't have that because that's not part of the agenda.
Yeah. Well, from the tech side, like you'll be tagged, right? And they're like, oh, this is Eddie Gallagher's account.
Oh yeah.
So we know where he stands. Right? He's gonna speak up and be honest. So we want to suppress his views, and it's not always just a straight full-on shadow ban. Sometimes it is.
The way they do it, and I was explaining this to people. So what we found out is what they do is they take away followers, right? So if I gain 1,000 and it'll all of a sudden pop up like, oh, you gained 1,000 followers, they'll unfollow 1,000 people. So it's like your numbers never go up. But if you're not paying attention, then you really won't catch it. And I really didn't pay attention either, because I don't care, like, follow me or not. But at the same time, eventually, because it does show you on that one graph. It's like, oh, these people started following. You'll have 500 people started following you from this and this and this. So you're like, huh, dude, that's a lot of followers. But yet I'm not moving anywhere. And that's when we dug into it. We found out that's exactly what they're doing. It's a version of shadow banning.
Well, you have people come up to you too and be like, hey, I was following you.
Yeah.
Like,
and then
I get that all the
me.
time. Sure.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what's tough is there's not a lot of recourse to actually change that around. And it's one, you have to spend some money, but then also it's not a clear path of fixing that or
Well, and it's also, if you do fix it, like, hey, you're doing this to me, they're like, okay, cool, we turn it off. The second you do another post, it's back on again because they have some geek working back there that's like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and do this to him again.
Well, or just straight scripts, that they have specific things. I mean, it comes from the top, but also even with AI, it's only going to be as good as the data you're training it and feeding it, right? So, and how they rate it and rank it. And so if I ask AI, which would be a good test, did Eddie Gallagher get pardoned for his, and it's like the top, if I Google that, some of the top posts are going to be New York Times. There's going to be these ones that have, the headlines are a lie, and so it's how are they ranking those major newspapers, CNN, like different ones, how they rank that data and how they, how it sources it between.
Yeah, I think it all depends. I'm sure there's different subsets of where you are on the spectrum of things. If you're Joe Rogan, there's different tactics than, small time influencer. I experienced it with Wikipedia, that I had for 5 times August, my 5 times August page was up for 15 years or something, just sitting there. And somebody sent me a message one day and said, hey, I was visiting your Wikipedia and noticed it's marked for deletion. And I went to the page and I was looking, I was like, oh, that's weird. I'm sitting there battling with one of the moderators behind the scenes about my own page and what's true about me. And they ultimately took my page down. And I was like, that is, weird dystopian crap, just because you're sitting there arguing with somebody who knows nothing about you, about what is true about you, to the point to where they go, well, we don't believe you. I'm in control. I'm just going to remove you. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is another tactic is that they'll just try to just quietly remove you.
Yeah.
So.
And they make it so complicated to fix that they know that most people are just going to give up and be like, no.
Oh, yeah. It. For sure. And a lot of your followers won't even notice because they're so inundated with everything else that they might not even notice that you haven't posted in a while, because unless they see it. you know, in their feed, unless you are inside their algorithm, you know, they might not even know that you're gone or anything has happened. That's why it's good to have networks of friends. So when something does happen, you can say, hey, I got locked out. Can you make a post and let other people know? But yeah, it's weird that we all have to navigate that terrain these days.
Yeah, it's weird.
They're deleting me again.
Yeah, let's just hope it doesn't go any further than that. You know what I mean? To where they told digital currency and all that, where they can be like, and your bank account is empty now,
right?
Because you spoke out against this. You know,
yeah.
Well, like where China's at, pretty much.
Yeah, that's what I think. You know, the COVID vaccine passport, all that stuff was infrastructure to get us lined up. I think if they want to do that again, everything's now in place to just get the apps up and rolling again, and you have to tie your bank account to move forward in life, and you know, there's a lot of crazy stuff that's on the horizon for us, between digital currency and Neuralink technology, AI generated everything, and it wasn't that long ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago even, that all this stuff that is like we're months and a few years away from are like, you know, you would have sounded crazy describing the stuff that we're witnessing right now. Yeah, it's wild. There's a few years ago, I was, do you remember the video of Biden where he did his speech and his eyes were like wide open and he didn't blink and his voice was all like rumbly, and people were sharing that video like, what's going on with Biden? But what they didn't put together was that the White House had posted a second video that day, and they were supposedly from the same day. One was kind of normal, squinty-eyed, you know, a little clear-speaking Biden. The other one was him wide-eyed. And I had posted just kind of observing the fact that either this is a deep fake or it's somebody else posing as him, or they've pepped him up with a whole bunch of drugs. Either way, this is not good. And I got slammed by, you know, some of the leftist media outlets as a kook for even suggesting that it could be an AI, you know, generated thing. And I'm like, why is that so crazy in a world where that is on the table?
When it's like in front of our face, like we can see the difference between the two. And I think he did have a stand-in. Like he had somebody, because I think there was another picture where he was getting onto a plane, and this guy was way taller. He looked like Biden. Way taller than Biden normally is. So there's definitely some of that going on. And I'm sure like maybe it is normal to have like a stunt double, you know, as a president, just for protection purposes or whatever. But when you have a president who is losing his mind, and this is geriatric, and then you replace him with these stunt doubles, and you're like, dude, this isn't the guy, right?
Right.
That's where I'm like, you're hiding the fact that our president is incompetent, and he's not making the decisions that's running this country. Oh, and by the way, he shits his pants all the time. Like, and I've gotten that from Secret Service that have worked with them. They're like, dude, they're like, it's so much worse than you could even imagine how bad off he is. Wow. But what I find funny is, you know, you get attacked for pointing something like that out, but then those same far left kooks will be like, oh, Trump set up the assassination on himself. Like it was a fake. And you're like,
that's the other end.
What?
Right. Yeah.
Like, dude, and they honestly believe that. And I've seen people still posting about it to this day, like, you know, that's not a 5.56 or a bullet injury, like this. But they don't take into the account, like, what about the people that died in the stands?
Right.
Like, so what, that was all just set up, you know? Like, give me a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. We have to just, you know, question everything we're seeing now, and it's creating a lot of confusion and a lot of you know, miscommunication with just us as individuals from one to the other. And I know this, you know, that's happening in families and friendships. And
and what I've learned to do, man, is like, I mean, I get it. We're talking about it now, and it's, you know, it's good discussion points, and we're pointing out the obvious. But at the end of the day, I just try and not, like, I don't let that dictate my life.
Oh, sure.
It's like, dude, think the way you want to think. I'm going to think the way I want to think. Just dude, let's just live life and do what we can to serve others and do what's good for us. You know what I mean? Like protect, provide for my family, love your neighbor. I mean, even if your neighbor votes for the other side, it's like, dude, there's really no room like to sit there and hate people over this, right? And people will always be kooks. There's kooks everywhere, man. And it's just not political. It's like just in general, right? And you can't let yourself get riled up all the time. And I think that's a lot of this country lets their day be dictated off of all of what we just talked about. And it's a sad thing. It's like, dude, go out there and talk to your neighbor. And I guarantee you'll see that you'll get along. Just don't even bring up politics. Yeah. It's
right. It is funny.
Nuts.
It is funny as if you were to observe my social media activity, which is completely separate than who I am as a person. Like, but I'll get people commenting, they'll be like, "God, you're so negative and miserable. You must have a sad life." I'm like, my happiness is not based on what the government is doing. I'm just sharing this here in this little, nook on the internet that doesn't really mean anything. But it is funny how people make that assumption about you. But yeah, man, it's just, waking up every day, raising your kids, living a happy life. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we all have to get back to.
Yeah, and don't let them take that from you, because they will.
100%. Yeah.
What do you got coming up next?
So I've been invited to Canada for Druthers News. They're an independent news outlet. They're having a 5-year anniversary, so I get to go to Canada, maybe future part of the United States coming up here. I'll be doing that. I'm actually working on part of my path over the last several years has been connecting with other creative individuals, and I've been doing a children's series for one of Dr. Ben Carson's organizations. American Cornerstone Institute has a homeschool curriculum that teaches American history, and we do these 5-minute episodes. They're computer animated, and I write the songs for them. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we've done 2 seasons of that. You can check that out at starspangledadventures.com if you've got kids and you want to teach them a little bit of American history. They've got projects and downloads that correspond with the videos and stuff like that. And we're actually going to be starting work on a movie for it soon. So
nice.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's nice to be a part of a sort of a new path in culture and help sort of try to realign what's missing right now in the entertainment space.
Who's what's the movie being made through? What is there a production company?
Well, so it's American Cornerstone Institute. It's been Ben Carson's organization, and then we sort of have this team that has assembled through this organization of former writers and animators coming from the old VeggieTales show and Pixar and Disney and
Asparagus.
Yeah, so it's a very talented group of people, and we kind of have a team together, and we've been doing this show. So now it's kind of like, well, what else can we do? And so we kind of want to start broadening, the projects. And I think once we get this movie put together, we'll be looking for other projects and try to inch our way into the entertainment space, make more family entertainment. I think that's kind of what's on the horizon for me. I think is I kind of left behind a family project that was very important to me, and making children's entertainment, and I kind of left it to go and do this protest thing over the last couple of years, and I'd like to kind of work my way back into the family entertainment space. I feel like there's, what I've discovered is there's a lot of agenda. I mean, it's fairly obvious. There's a lot of agenda that's piped into our family entertainment, and there's a wide space there that needs to be filled in, I think, with conservative Christian values, but it doesn't have to be labeled conservative art or this is a Christian film, but to bake those sort of values back into what we're absorbing, I think will help us reconnect and realign moving forward. So I'd like to find that sort of good balance, that to help cross over, so people from maybe that other side can take their kids. That's what I'd like to see is we all go and see whatever, Disney has made and whatever is coming out through Hollywood a lot of the time, because they've got the money to push it out. And so I'd like to sort of see, I think we're at a pivotal moment now where we'll see a sort of a transition where people are sort of seeking out those sort of films and
shows with actual like that follow their values and their beliefs. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many shows we start and have to turn off because, they have to put, the whole transgender thing and everything now. And then even like, dude, I don't care if you're gay or whatever, like that's your choice. And I don't think, no hatred, nothing wrong with it. But what I can't stand is they've implemented it into almost every show now to where, and it's not just like, okay, there's a gay couple on a show, fine. But it's like in your face, and now we're going to make you watch them make out and have sex scenes. And you're like, dude, what? This is how far we've taken it. And it's not, and it's not normal.
Right.
I'm sorry. Like, not everybody is gay, but it seems like what they're putting out is like, oh yeah, it's everywhere. Yeah. And you should just get used to it. And, everybody's gay. You just don't know it. And it's like, dude, that's not true. Like, be gay, but don't force us to sit here and watch all these, this stuff and try, and especially shows with my kids. It's like, dude, this is not the programming that I want in this household. Sorry.
Yeah. It's very hard to find new entertainment to sit down and watch as a family. And I find myself reverting back to stuff that, I watched as a kid or even older than that.
All we watch is The Office.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
So over and over.
Yeah. I mean, we watched, Full House. My kids love the show Full House. And, it's just a good old family sitcom. But, there's a lot. It's just an innocent show, you know, and that's what
there's a lesson every time in it too.
Yeah, there's a certain thing, and maybe it's corny, but where the age that my kids are at now, they're not thinking it's corny. They're just taking in what the lesson is and what the story is and whatever it may be. And we used to have that, growing up.
Yeah.
I think episodes of G.I. Joe would end in like, today's lesson.
The more you know.
Yeah. Right. And there was still value wrapped into that. And so we just have further and further replaced those little lessons and substituted agenda for actual story. That's a problem in Hollywood right now, and you see it more and more. But it's all manufactured.
It is. I have friends that work in Hollywood, and they're creating. I have a buddy right now that's in the process of creating his own series, and he was like sort of going over just what a pain in the ass it is to find a company to like, okay, we're going to create this series, but then also they'll take your script and your story and be like, okay, this character will do this, but he has to be a transgender. Let's make this character black. Let's make this character that, and it's like, dude, well, that's not my story. But it's like, well, if you want us to make it, we have to have
that diversity, equity,
have to have
and
all this diversity, which then takes away from the actual story. It's like now the story doesn't make sense at all.
Right.
But he was telling me, he's like, dude, most of them they have to have that or they won't make it.
Right. Yeah, I discovered that early on when I started the Juicebox Jukebox project. I went out to a Grammy luncheon to have lunch with the Grammy nominations for children's genre, and it was sort of just a luncheon for me I was kind of on the outside. I was coming from another place. I was like, let's go see who the top people in the children's genre are, and let's start mingling in that circle. And I went out there and quickly realized, I was like, oh gosh, after a few conversations, I was like, it's the same industry,
Yeah.
It's that way for, you think it would be different in children's entertainment or even Christian entertainment. There's still certain rules that or agendas being piped in that you wouldn't expect, and it's tough to navigate sometimes. And that's one of the reasons why I like being an independent artist. Is it's my rules, and so you just keep knocking away at it.
Yeah, man. I think that's the way to do it too. If you want to make what you want to make, is stay independent.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons I felt so comfortable early on. Well, not so comfortable, but at least I took the risk of speaking out during COVID, was because, you know, I wasn't tethered down to a contract. I didn't have managers. I didn't have a label trying to dictate that. And I think that's why you didn't see so many artists and entertainers speaking out. They were all sort of taking part in those campaigns where they were showing you, hey, I went and got my booster or whatever it was.
Well, it's right here, the money
is all right there. So, yeah, you just got to go your own way and, you know, keep knocking away at it.
If people want to find your Jukebox,
it's a tongue twister. Yeah.
Is there a website they go to? Or?
Yeah, you can check out the jukebox.com. And so it's a tongue twister for sure, but it's been a blessing to get to do that project. That's a whole other side of things. You know, I've spent the last several years, you know, traveling the world doing protests and speaking out on the one hand, but my favorite thing has been performing for kids in elementary schools, and when they know those songs and they sing them back, like, that's the biggest reward in the world. So,
like Raffi.
Yeah, a little cooler than Raffi. People often go to Raffi. I'm like, I'm a little cooler than Raffi. Yeah, it's hard because you say children's entertainment, people instantly go to like Baby Shark or something like that. And I'm like, no, it's cooler than that. You know? But yeah, that you can check out the Juicebox, jukebox.com, and then 5timesaugust.com is my other music. So
awesome.
So one last question.
Yeah.
During your protests that you went to over the past couple of years that you've been going to, these are all like the anti-mask, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys ever burn anything, break anything, burn any cars, hurt any individuals while you were doing it?
We only burned one person and 6 cars, but no, that's the funny thing about it was you'd attend these things. We did the biggest one I did was in D.C. called Defeat the Mandates. It was on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. It was amazing to be there. I got to perform there and look out and see all these people, and I left there going like, this is where all the unity is that they say doesn't exist in this country. Like, people that would attend those rallies, that was the biggest eye-opening thing, was you perform in D.C., or I traveled to Austria, or I've been to Germany, London. These rallies were so unifying, and it wasn't just one side of the aisle. It was people from all different walks, all different political beliefs coming together just to say, leave us alone. And never once was there violence, was there any, you know, even on the signs, you know, there wasn't any violence depicted on signage or anything, you know. Maybe, yeah, Fauci needs to go to prison, but, you know, compared to BLM riots, compared to, you know, all the looting that we saw and all that, no, it was actually very, very beautiful.
Weird.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? It's like what they're telling us is a lie.
I wanted to get that point out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. Flying out here on your own time.
Thanks
with
for
everything
having
going
me.
on.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
absolutely.
brother, it was a great conversation, man.
Thank you so much.
I'll definitely be checking out Jukebox.
Juicebox, Jukebox. Yeah.
So it's juice
share
first.
It with your Jukebox.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Check it out. Share that with your kids. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
You as well.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
All right. Out.
Hey, what's up, guys? So, as you know, when I'm not podcasting, I'm doing a lot of instructing shooting courses, whether it's from basic to advanced. And the one product I'd love to see people bring to the range is a suppressor, for obvious reasons, because when you shoot, you want to shoot like a gentleman. And over the course of my career, and also while instructing, I have got to shoot a multitude of different suppressors, and there's only one that I really love that I stick with, and that is elevated silence. I've been shooting that now for over a couple years. There is very little to no blowback. It's definitely one of the quietest suppressors out there, and believe me, I put it to the test. They are made to last. So whether you're a seasoned shooter or new to the game, Elevated Silence has a suppressor to match your needs. Their commitment to quality ensures that each product enhances your shooting sessions, making them more enjoyable and memorable. If you are looking to pick up a suppressor, go to elevatedsilence.com. Thank you, and God bless.